Okay, here's a thought experiment for you. What if making an AI more secure actually made it more biased? And what if making it fair left it wide open to attack? It sounds like a paradox, right? Well, that's because it is, and it's one of the biggest, most impossible dilemmas in AI today. Let's break it down. So this is the big question, really. As AI systems weave themselves into, well, everything, from who gets a loan to who gets parole, we're being backed into a corner. And we have to ask, do we really have to choose between an AI that's secure and one that's fair? And here's why it's such a tough choice. You see, these two goals are fundamentally at odds. Security, by its very nature, demands opacity. You gotta lock things down, keep your method secret, build a black box to protect it. But fairness? Fairness requires the exact opposite. It demands transparency. You have to be able to open that box up and show everyone what's inside to prove it isn't biased. They are literally pulling in opposite directions. So let's get on the same page. What do we even mean when we say security and fairness in the world of AI? When we're talking about AI security, think of it like building a fortress. It's all about protecting the huge amounts of sensitive data used to train the model. It's about preventing rivals from stealing the model itself, which is incredibly valuable intellectual property. And of course, it's about defending it from attacks and keeping its inner workings encrypted. The whole point is to make it impenetrable. But then you have AI fairness, which is all about accountability. It's about proving that the model treats everyone the same, no matter their background. It's making sure its decisions don't harm one particular group more than another. And this is the big one. It's about making sure its decisions are transparent enough that outsiders can come in and audit the whole system to verify those claims. Now, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. This conflict has very real, very tangible technical consequences. Let's dig into how specific tools we use for security can actually make an AI system less fair. Okay, get ready for a shocker. Some of the very technologies we invent to protect people's privacy can make an AI system more discriminatory. I know, it sounds backward, but let's look at the numbers. Yup, a 2019 study from Google found that when they applied a standard privacy technique to a criminal justice algorithm, the racial bias of that model shot up by a staggering 12%. So how on earth does that happen? Well, the technique is called differential privacy. The simple version is that it adds a little bit of mathematical noise or static to the data. This fuzziness helps protect any single person's identity. But here's the problem. For minority groups, which often have way less data in the training set to begin with, that noise can completely drown out the real signal. So the model gets worse at making accurate predictions for that group. The bottom line is brutal. A feature designed to protect everyone ends up harming the most vulnerable. Let's switch gears and look at another clash. What happens when a company's right to protect its intellectual property runs head-on into our civil rights? This is where security, in the form of trade secrets, becomes a shield for potential discrimination. This was the actual response from the company that made the COMPAS algorithm, a tool used in real U.S. courtrooms to predict if a defendant will reoffend. When journalists and researchers asked to look under the hood to check for racial bias, this is what they got. And the impact here was massive. An investigation by ProPublica eventually found that the tool was, in fact, significantly biased against Black defendants. But because the company hid behind the trade secret argument, a full independent audit was impossible. It put the justice system in a terrible bind. Use a secret, flawed tool, or don't use it at all. The security of the company's IP created a roadblock to ensuring fairness. So you might be thinking, surely some brilliant engineers have come up with a clever technical fix for this, right? Well, people have definitely tried, but as we're about to see, these solutions often end up just moving the problem around instead of actually solving it. So first up is something called federated learning. The idea is actually pretty genius. You can train one massive AI model using data from millions of phones, but, and here's the key, none of your personal data ever leaves your device. It sounds perfect, right? You get security and the data you need. But there's always a catch. The very thing that protects your privacy, keeping all the data spread out, also makes it impossible for an auditor to check that data for bias. You just can't see it. Even worse, it opens up a huge security hole where a bad actor could intentionally poison the model by feeding it biased data from their own device. Okay, so what about another idea, synthetic data? The goal here is to create artificial, totally fake data that looks and feels just like the real, sensitive stuff. That way, auditors can poke around and test for bias without ever touching anyone's private information. It sounds like a perfect workaround.
but it has what might be a fatal flaw. It turns out that the process of generating that fake data can actually amplify the biases that were already in the original dataset. A bombshell study from MIT in 2021 found that using synthetic data to train a facial recognition model made it 30% more racially biased. Ouch.
We seem to be hitting a wall here. If even our smartest technical solutions can't get us out of this paradox, it kind of forces us to take a step back and ask a much, much deeper question. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't a coding problem we can solve with a clever algorithm. Maybe we need to see this for what it really is, an ethical crossroads, one that forces us as a society to make a conscious choice about what we truly value most. You can really break it down into 3 viewpoints. First, you've got the security prioritist. For them, protecting data and intellectual property is number 1. But the risk is you're asking marginalized groups to bear the cost of any hidden bias. Then there's the fairness prioritist, who says civil rights are non-negotiable. The risk there? You might stifle innovation or even weaken individual privacy for everyone. Finally, you have the pragmatist, who says, hey, it depends on the situation. But the danger there is that security just becomes a convenient excuse to dodge accountability. There are no easy answers here. Because ultimately, that's what this is. Every single time we build and deploy one of these powerful AI systems, we are making a moral choice, whether we want to admit it or not. The code itself is a reflection of the values we decided to prioritize. And that forces us to ask some really uncomfortable questions. When we choose security over transparency, who actually pays the price? Who suffers the real-world consequences of a biased algorithm that no one is allowed to inspect? And let's flip that coin. Who benefits from keeping things opaque? Who profits when a model's flaws are protected as a trade secret, allowing that unfairness to continue unchecked? Which really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. This isn't a decision that should be left to engineers alone in a lab somewhere. This is a decision for all of us. In this new age of AI, who gets to make the call? Who gets to decide which matters more, our security or our fairness? That is the impossible dilemma.